everyone, so this is going to be my first video of my inventory check-in videos, and I'm going to start with the Vandaceous orchids. So this one is Papillionanthe x taiwaniana, and it does well for me. It has grown a little bit crooked because at one point, I think this was at the window, or it's trying to find the light, so I have it directly under artificial lights now, so it's slowly making its way up. Overall, this does well for me. Other than being crooked, it's totally fine. And this one is Pelatantheria ctenoglossum, and overall, it's doing fine. It has a new growth on the side here, which is really good. My biggest gripe is at the top. You can see that its growth habit, the leaves are getting smaller and smaller. My solution was to reduce the light, because at one point it was getting quite purple, but I'm not sure if the light is low enough or if something else is wrong with it. This one is Staurochilus fasciatus, and it's doing pretty well for me, although I haven't had it bloom for me yet, other than the first time when I actually got it. You can see on the leaves it had issues with spotting, but all the new growth is clean, so I think it's okay. I haven't bothered to remove the bottom leaves. I do want to, but it's gonna look bald, and if it's not spreading, then I think it's okay. And this one is Aerides houlletiana. It was previously growing at the window, which is why the growth is a bit crooked, so I've transferred it into this cymbidium pot, and it's tied to a stake just to keep it upright. So I'm hoping the growth will kind of straighten itself out. It's been a while since this one has rebloomed for me, so I'm hoping with more consistent lighting that will help. And this one is Vandas coerulescens. This one also used to grow at the window, but like the houlletiana, it was growing a bit crooked, which I didn't like. So I put in a pot, and it seems like the roots have stuck to the pot a little bit, which is really good. And I'm hoping I can get like a better consistent blooming now that it's directly under artificial lighting. And this one is Aeridocentrum Gewgaw, and this had always had fungal issues for me, but I believe it's under control now. I think only this leaf, and yeah, just this one has one spot, but it hasn't spread. You can see there's a new leaf growing inside the keiki, which is really good, and there's also a new leaf growing inside the main growth. So I've had this plant for a very long time. I'd say almost since the beginning of my orchid growing hobby, and considering I've had it for that long, it hasn't been doing that great, but I think it's improving now. I think the fact that I got it as a seedling when I was first starting, contributed to the not so good growth, but now that I'm kind of more consistent and I sort of know what I'm doing, I think it'll do better. And especially now that I've more or less tackled the fungal issue. And this one is Vanda jennae, and it's doing pretty well considering that it didn't really have a great root system when I got it. You can see the growth wasn't that great when I first got it, but it's growing a bit more consistently now. Although the leaves are kind of curved a little bit, but that's okay. And if you look inside, it's pushing out a lot of new root tips, which is really good. I think once I get a much more robust root system, it'll do a lot better. And this one is Pteroceras longicalcareum, and in my collection, it kind of just hangs out in the background, doesn't really do much. It's actually 3 separate plants, but the latest thing that's going on is that it pushed out this flower spike, so I expect to get some flowers on this one within the next few months, I hope. Just this one though. These ones I haven't seen any signs of flower spikes. And this is Dimorphorchis rossi, and I bought it as a seedling. It's doing pretty well. It's continuously pushing out new leaves, which is good. And right now I just have it growing in moss. Kind of debating if I should move it to lava rock, but moss is fine for now since it's a seedling. Overall doing well. And this one is Vanda foetida. I bought it as a seedling from Clouds Orchids. Doing very, very well for me. I am debating whether I should move this to a bigger container. You can see there's one root kind of growing upwards. Yeah, so the root system hasn't filled out the container completely, but the top part is getting pretty big. I know this plant gets massive, which is kind of exciting. I still don't think is big enough to bloom yet, but it's definitely getting there, so definitely a keeper. And this one is a Vanda brunnea. This was a gift from Orchidea actually. So Orchidea, if you're watching, it's doing well for me. So what I usually do, because it's in a basket, when I water it, I fill the tray with water, and throughout the week the basket and the roots absorb the water, and I think that's been going well for this plant so far. I think it's still technically a seedling, not yet ready to bloom, but definitely getting there. And this one is Vanda insignis, and I also got this from Clouds as a seedling. It grows really well for me, but not as quickly as the Vanda foetida. I think this one also gets pretty big, but I'm not sure if it's as big as the foetida. I'm also considering moving it into a larger container just because of the roots. Kind of don't really like how it's growing crooked, but whatever. If it's doing well, it's doing well. I can't really complain. So yeah, this one is also growing a new leaf and doing well for me. And this is a Vanda tricolor seedling. This one's also from Orchidea. Doing well, pretty good root growth. Not very big yet though, but it's definitely growing for sure. And this is Renanthera monachica, and it's bloomed the first time for me this year, which is really good. Currently has some weird marking on these two leaves at the top. I think this leaf is okay. I see a little bit of yellow at the tip there, but most of the leaf is fine. Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna bloom again next year, but I'm hoping that now it's already bloomed once for me, that it's gonna give me more continuous blooms moving forward. And this one is Stereochilus erinaceus, and it's growing okay for me. I feel like the leaf growth is a little bit inconsistent. I can kind of see like these leaves are bigger and then this one's pretty small. Not sure how this one will be. I'm wondering if this one will catch up. My initial concern was maybe it's a bit too dry to be on a mount, but it's actually pushing out quite a few root tips. And I feel like I've been somewhat consistent with keeping the humidity kind of high, at least within the tent here, and now that I've moved it in here, then I think it'll do better. It's bloomed for me only once, but I'm hoping it can bloom for me again. So this one is doing okay. So these are my surviving Vanda leucostele seedlings. So this one had two, and one was doing really poorly, so I pulled it out. This one is doing well, except for that one leaf, which I'll cut off. This one was the one that was doing the best, but I noticed that on this plant, some of the leaves had fallen off. They were turning brown, and these for the most part were doing well, but you can see this one is starting to show markings of what I think could be fungus. So what I need to do, I think, is just repot everything and change all the media, and probably separate this one, so at least if one gets infected, then the others will be okay. But overall, I think these are doing pretty well. Kind of wish I had more survivors, and I kind of wish I didn't have that fungus issue, but it is what it is. And this one is Ascocentrum pusillum, and it's doing pretty good for me. It only bloomed once, and I think it was just like one or two really tiny flowers, which I didn't really catch on time. But I know for sure this is blooming size, so I'm hoping I can get another bloom out of this. And this one is Aerides flabellata, and it's doing pretty okay for me. Bloomed for me, I think in 2021 or last year, I don't remember, but has only bloomed once so far. You can kind of see inside that there's a keiki growing, and it's pushing out a lot of root tips, so I think this is doing well. This is Trichoglottis pusilla. I have it growing on the coolog, and this has bloomed for me a couple times before. Nowadays, it seems to just want to grow like new keikis or offshoots, and I haven't seen any flower spikes since, so I'm not sure why. And this one is Vanda Pamilla. I had a cristata and a Pamilla, so I gave my cristata away because I want to attempt to bloom this Pamilla. And the issue I'm having right now is you can see these leaves are pretty short, and they're growing quite close together. I feel like it should be long like this and a little bit more spaced out. I have yet to see a flower spike on it, although it tends to just keep growing, so I'm having some issues with this one here. But I'm not gonna give up on this one yet. And this one is Vanda Ricky Perez, which is Coltana fragrance crossed with tessellata. And this one is doing pretty well for me as well. Not much to say about it. I want to say it should be blooming size, but that I really don't know. At some point it had these like really small leaves, but it's since gotten much better, which is good. Yeah, I haven't seen any spikes on it yet, so hopefully soon. And this one is Ascocentrum mediatum. It's a good consistent grower and bloomer, but I am getting kind of bored of it, so this one I will be getting rid of at our summer sale. And this one is my Aerides Bangkok Sunset, and it bloomed for the first time for me, I think last year. It was either last year or earlier this year. The bloom spike wasn't that great, but it bloomed for me, which is awesome. I think I've wanted this plant for a very, very long time, and I've had this one for a while now, so I'm pretty happy that it bloomed for me. It is potted in a moss in a clay pot, and I believe I got that idea from Rescutcell, because when I tried to grow this bare root or in a vase, it just didn't work out, but in this setup it seems pretty happy. And this one is Vanda longicalcareum, and I kind of consider this my pride and joy of my Vanda collection. I really like the flowers, and it's a good size. It's not massive, but it's not super tiny either, so it's good if you don't have a super big place. I did have some concerns because the lower leaves have fallen off, but the upper leaves are still fine. They're still healthy. Even though this cakey, the inner leaf has dried up, this leaf is still alive. So I wonder if it will push out another leaf to replace that one. I'm not really sure. At some point it started this flower spike, but it hasn't grown since. It also hasn't gotten any worse, but I haven't seen any flower spikes throughout the rest of this top section so far. And last but not least, this is Paraphalaenopsis labucensis crossed with Fidenia mitrata. I guess I could have put this with the phals, but I'm just going to put it here for now. Yeah, this is a pretty good, consistent grower and bloomer for me. Bloomed for me in the springtime. I really like the flowers. I think they're really unique, and it does really well in my environment, so definitely a keeper. And I think that's it for my Vandas. I'm going to water my plants, and then I will start filming the other groups. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.